Sahana vavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Ekam Shastram Devaki Putra Geetam Eko Devo Devaki Putra Eva Eko Mantrastasya Namani Yani Karmapyekam Tasya Devasya Seva. So pranam to everyone. Today we are in chapter 6 and we'll be doing shlokas 18 to 26. And I've titled this session as the Ashtanga Yoga process part 2. We did part 1 last week. In part 1, we covered up till shloka number 17. Now, Bhagavad Gita as a whole, what does it teach us? Why are we studying the Bhagavad Gita? Because the Gita gives us knowledge which we don't get elsewhere. In all the other education that we have, we learn a lot of good things, but one important thing that is very, very, very valuable to us is not available in modern education, and that the Bhagavad Gita gives us. And what is that? The Gita teaches us that our real happiness is to be found inside us. It's already present inside us, and we have to discover it. So we are working very hard. All our education, our efforts, our career, everything is eventually directed towards becoming happy. Happiness is the common goal for all living beings, not only human beings, regardless of what they are doing. Everyone is working to become happy. So for becoming happy, we normally look outwards. We look at, going to a better living condition, a better city, a better place to live, where there is more facility. We look at a place where we can get better food, better in terms of taste. We look at places where we can enjoy in different ways, like going to a resort, a mall, a beach. So we are always looking outwards for happiness. The Gita teaches us that real happiness, our ultimate happiness, the best form of happiness, continuous happiness, which never gets over, is to be found inside of us. And why is that so? Why is it present inside? It's simply because we are not this material body. We're actually the Jivatma that lives in this body. We are an Atma. We are not this body. That's the first teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita begins with that lesson, that every living being is a Jivatma who lives in the body. And the Jivatma has so many properties. And one of them is the property of knowledge and the absence of misery. Absence of all forms of misery that are experienced in this world, and the presence of pure happiness. So the Gita teaches us how to get this happiness, and that is denoted by the general word called yoga. Yoga means to connect with Bhagavan, that supreme consciousness, the supreme being, the supreme person, with whom that happiness exists. And in that connection lies the best form of happiness. Now, yoga, how it is done, depends on the adhikar, or the eligibility of the individual. According to adhikar, different types of yoga are possible for the individual: karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga. These are all described in the Bhagavad Gita. These 4 major forms are described. Of these, you can say broadly 2 categories exist. One is bhakti yoga, and the other is karma yoga, followed by jnana yoga. Dhyana yoga is a methodology which can be applied in either case, whether you perform bhakti or you perform karma yoga and jnana yoga. So we are now discussing dhyana yoga, which is in the middle of the 6th chapter. So the 6th chapter begins with the understanding, or begins with the idea of karma yoga as the means for the beginner. So when somebody begins, By the way, do you mind putting the curtains? Yes, I'm seeing some insects are coming. Absolutely, sir. I was just about to tell you. Yes, all the curtains. Yeah. Thank you. So Karma Yoga is the starting point because Karma Yoga involves doing one's duties sincerely with detachment. By doing duties with detachment from the fruits of the duties. When you say detachment, it doesn't mean lack of interest in the work. It is with full interest in the work, full commitment to the work, but detachment from the enjoyment, material enjoyment that the work can bring eventually. Detachment from that. Doing work for with the consciousness that it is my duty to do it. And by doing my duty sincerely, I will become purified. I will become spiritually elevated. I'll become closer to God. I will be able to discover myself with that understanding and with that intention. That is Karma Yoga. And eventually, to build that consciousness, one also offers the fruits of whatever one gets to that Supreme God, to God, to Bhagavan. So this is the process of purification through Karma Yoga. And the sixth chapter begins by saying that one should actually do Karma Yoga, and by doing that, one becomes eligible to do what is called as Karma Sannyas. But Sri Bhagavan points out that the word sannyas actually means detachment from the fruits of work. It does not mean inactivity. Sannyasa is sometimes misunderstood as a person who gives up his work and just sits idle. Only a person who has already developed detachment is eligible for doing that. But a person who is actually doing his duty with detachment is also a sannyasi because he has the mentality of sannyas. And then Sri Bhagavan points out that yoga and sannyas both have the same objective. That is purification, elevation, and connection with God. Then Sri Bhagavan says that in the beginning, when somebody is a beginner, and neophyte, Karma Yoga is the process. But when somebody has elevated themselves sufficiently, they become eligible, then they can give up work. They can do Karma Sannyas, give up their activity, their duties, and then spend their full time in trying to develop the ability to do dhyana, do yoga through dhyana. Okay, so then he talks about the importance of controlling the mind, and that is one of the central themes of the sixth chapter. He says that the mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy of the person, the friend or an enemy. For one who has conquered the mind is a friend. It gives him happiness. But for one who has not conquered it, but is still indulging in enjoyment, the mind is actually an enemy. It's contrary to what we normally think, what our modern education teaches us. Modern education is largely oriented towards teaching us that, become successful. Success means making more money. Through more money, you get more access to sense enjoyment, and that is where happiness lies. You get more freedom to enjoy your senses. In the Bhagavad-Gita, the definition of freedom is restraining the senses from their objects. It's exact opposite. So withdrawing the senses from the object, disciplining the mind. Discipline is the route to freedom. Discipline is freedom, not the absence of discipline, which modern education seems to talk about. Right? So there is a direct contradiction, or direct, I will say, the opposite direction the Bhagavad Gita goes. So then Sri Bhagavan says that when one is really content, then one knows that one has made progress in yoga. And then he says that to practice this path of Dhyana Yoga, which is also called Ashtanga Yoga, in the Patanjali process, so there is similarity between what Sri Bhagavan is teaching in the Bhagavad Gita as Dhyana Yoga and what is called as Ashtanga Yoga, the Patanjali Yoga system. So he says that one should stay in a secluded place and have their own asana, etc. A lot of details we talked about in the last session, and these are the details about Ashtanga Yoga. And we also saw this slide in the last session. This is the Patanjali Ashtanga Yoga Paddhati having 8 stages. These stages are not mutually exclusive. Each earlier stage is included in the next stage. So by the time one reaches the 8th stage of Samadhi, one actually is also doing all the others. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana. All these are subsumed in the last stage, Samadhi. So we discussed in some detail what these stages mean. And today we have the shlokas we are going to focus on begin with the description of Samadhi. Okay, Samadhi essentially is a stage where one has actually learned how to reside in their own inside, within themselves, the inside world. Okay, the outside world is where we begin. But by practicing these steps, one learns how to discover one's inner self, the inside world. Right? So now we will look at these shlokas. Shri Bhagavan says in the 18th shloka, Yada viniyatam chittam atmanyeva avatishtate nisprihaha sarvakamebhyo yukta ityuchyate tada. He says, Yada, when, viniyatam means well regulated or well disciplined. Niyatam means discipline. Viniyatam, well disciplined. Chittam, the mind. Atmanyeva, in the self itself. Avatishtate is resides. So when the mind, the well disciplined mind, resides in the self itself, nisprihaha sarva kamebhyo, completely, you can say, devoid of enthusiasm to enjoy the senses. Okay, in our normal life, we are enthusiastic to enjoy our senses in different ways, right? So now a person who has gone through the yoga process, has detached themselves from the sense objects and learned how to discover the happiness inside, is completely devoid of the desire to enjoy their senses. Nisprihaha sarva kamebhyo yukta ityuchyate tada. Yuktaha. The word yuktaha comes repeatedly in the Bhagavad-Gita. It's one of those repeating terms. Yuktaha means what? A person who is properly engaged or properly situated. Appropriately, properly situated in yoga, such a person is called yuktaha. Yuktaha ityuchyate tada. So when a person is fully focused inside, he is yuktaha. When one's mind is well disciplined and resides only within the self, free from all desires for material enjoyment, then one is said to be properly situated. Yatha dipo nivatastho nengate sopama smrita yogino yatha chittasya yunjato yogam atmanaha. So here an analogy is used, upama in Sanskrit. Analogies are called upama. Upama means when we compare, use some object to compare with an object that we are trying to describe. Okay, so suppose you want to describe the beauty of some lady, let us say, a beautiful woman. Okay, so you'll say that her face is as beautiful as the moon, right? So the moon is used as an object of comparison because we are able to understand that. We cannot see the woman, let us say, she's not in front of us, so we don't know how beautiful she is. So somebody who has seen her comes and tells us, her face, oh, she's so beautiful. She's as beautiful as the moon, full moon. So we know how beautiful the full moon is. So that gives us an idea of how beautiful this woman might be. He's not saying that her face looks like a full moon. If her face looks like the full moon, then you will think she's a ghost or something, right? And she will no longer look beautiful to you. He's comparing the beauty of the full moon with the beauty of the woman. So now here, the yogi, the person who is now controlled, okay? Yoginaha yata chittasya, who is being compared? The yogi is being compared. Yoginaha, which kind of yogi? Yata chittaha means one who has restrained his mind. The person is called yata chittaha. And yunjato yogam atmanaha, one whose mind is engaged in yoga, or mind or self. Atmanaha can mean the self or the mind, both. One whose mind, self-intelligence, they are engaged in yoga. Such a yogi, what is he compared with? He is compared with yatha deepaha. Deepaha means a lamp, right? The flame of a lamp. The flame that we see in a lamp, that's the substantial portion of the lamp which we are interested in, which is emitting light. So why is he compared to the lamp? Because that lamp is nivatastha. Nivatastha means it is situated in a place where there is no wind. Okay, so imagine that you have lit a lamp, diya. Okay, like on Diwali we light lamps, right? So such a lamp is, let us say, in a place where there is no wind. Wind is not moving. There's absolutely no wind, zero wind. Okay, there is air, no doubt. If there's no air, then the lamp will not burn, right? But there is air, there is no wind, it's not moving. So in such a case, what will that flame look like? The flame will be absolutely steady. Na ingate. Na ingate means na ingate. Ingate means moves. Na ingate, does not move. Sopama smrita. Such a upama. Sa upama. Saha upama. That Deepa is considered as the upama, the analogy or metaphor or of this particular yogi. So this yogi, a person who has reached that stage of samadhi, has matured, is so unmoving, means unchanging, is so steady, absolutely steady in his activities. his activities of meditation, whatever he does, is absolutely steady, unchanging. Okay, he's fixed. No wavering in his mind, in his activities. He's a very, very firm person, absolutely firm. The yogi, who in the practice of yoga has restrained his mind, is unwavering and steady like the flame of a lamp in a windless place that does not move. Yatra uparamate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaiva atmana atmanam pashyan atmani tushyati. So now Sri Bhagavan is describing the stage known as asamprajn samadhi. This term actually is not used in the Bhagavad-gita. The Bhagavad-gita uses the word samadhi, but not asamprajn samadhi. So this word asamprajnata comes from Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Okay, so the commentators like Vishwanath Chakravarti, Baladev Vidyabhushana, they have invoked this, and this not only they, but even earlier commentators on the Gita have described, used these words to describe the samadhi that Bhagavan describes in different places. And in the context of Dhyana Yoga, which Sri Bhagavan is speaking about now in the 6th chapter, this word becomes relevant. So in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, he describes very, very broadly two types of samadhi, samprajnata samadhi and asamprajnata samadhi. And this is somewhere in the first, what is called a samadhi pada, the 4 padas, 4 sections in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. The first one is called samadhi pada. In samadhi pada, this distinction between samprajnata and asamprajnata appears. Samprajnata samadhi is a more initial stage. Samprajnata is a more developed stage of samadhi. So in an initial stage of samadhi, one has gone through dharana dhyana, and one's mind has reached a stage of maturity when one can contemplate on the object of meditation for a very long period of time without being disturbed. With complete peace and focus, one is able to hold or meditate upon that desired object, whatever that object is. The Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras does not specifically say or recommend a particular object. So people, the commentators on Yoga Sutras have interpreted that it could be any object of their choice. But in the Bhagavad Gita, the object of meditation is Sri Bhagavan himself. And connecting with Sri Bhagavan is the objective of the Bhagavad Gita. It's spoken by him, and he repeatedly, many, many places, he says, connect with me. I will be the solution to all your problems. I will be the source of happiness for you. Asamprajnata samadhi is when you don't actually think of any particular object. Your mind does not depend on the object to hold itself. That is how the Patanjali Yoga Sutra and the commentaries on it explain. That your consciousness is so developed that it's automatically fixed. It's automatically in a stage of dhyana, spontaneously in a stage of dhyana. Okay, that is asamprajnata samadhi, where you realize you're fully absorbed in that consciousness, your awakened consciousness, your full consciousness. Okay, your awareness is at a very, very high level. So these next 3 or 4 shlokas, the 4 shlokas talk about this stage of asamprajnata samadhi. Yatra, in that stage of samadhi, yatra means where, uparamate resides, chittam, that mind, one's mind or consciousness, niruddham, fully restrained, yoga sevaya, by the practice of yoga, yatra, where, cha eva, atmana atmanam, with the mind, one's own self, pashyan atmani tushyati, seeing one's own self with one's mind, one experiences joy. Tushyati means feels happy. Tushyati, like somebody gives you some nice object, you feel happy. Somebody says something good about you, you feel happy. That is the meaning of tushyati, feeling happy. So here, this yogi is not depending on anybody to give him an object or say something nice about him. Nobody is there. He's living in a completely secluded place. So he does not depend on somebody praising him or not saying bad things about him. Simply by looking at his own self, experiencing his own self, pashyan atmani tushyati, experiences his own self and feels very happy. That state in which, by virtue of yoga practice, one dwells in one's own consciousness, that is restrained and free from contact with anything, and in which, seeing the self with the pure mind, one feels happy within oneself. Sukham atyantikam yat tat buddhigrahyam atindriyam vetti yatra na chaivayam stitaschalati tattvataha. So in that state, continuing to describe that state, sukham atyantikam, sukham, happiness, atyantikam, not antikam. Antikam means that which will end after some time. Atyantikam means unlimited, never ending. never-ending happiness. Yet, what type of happiness? Tatu buddhigrahyam tatu buddhigrahyam. Tad buddhigrahyam means the buddhi which is described in the previous shloka. By looking at the self, that buddhi, that intelligence by which the person is completely absorbed in their own self. That buddhi helps the person to feel this happiness. Atindriyam. It is beyond the senses. It is a kind of happiness that the senses cannot give us, whatever we do. How much ever sensual objects we try to indulge in, that happiness which this yogi will experience can never be obtained. That happiness can be obtained only through the process of yoga. There is no other way that we can experience the happiness. Veti means he knows. He knows that happiness in that state. Yatra. Nacha eva ayam stitaha chalati tattvataha. And being situated in that state, ayam means this yogi, tattvataha na chalati. He will never move away from that state. He becomes so fixed in that state. It is such a happiness producing state that he will never be disturbed from that state. Okay? By default. That's the default condition. That state in which one knows the kind of unlimited happiness that is grasped with such an intelligence and is beyond the senses, and in which one never departs from self-realization. Yam labdhva, having obtained which, cha aparam labham manyate nadikam tataha, yasmin sthito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate. Having obtained which, yam labdhva, cha aparam labham, a superior gain. Aparam means beyond this, happiness beyond what I am already experiencing. Labham, gain, manyate, thinks, na adhikam tataha. So the yogi does not think, or he thinks that there is no happiness beyond this. It is not possible to have a happiness that is beyond the happiness I'm experiencing now. Okay, he has that realization. That is the highest form of happiness. He feels that way. Yasmin stitaha, situated in which, na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate. He will not be shaken even by a very heavy or severe misery. Guruna. Guruna dukkhena. Guru means in Sanskrit, there are two meanings to the word guru. One of them comes from, there are two words actually, two different words. One is a pumlinga, masculine gender word, guru. That is a ukaranta, pumlinga shabda guru. That is teacher. Acharya, teacher, that is guru. That is a word that we normally use when we say somebody is my guru, is my teacher. That is one meaning of guru. The other meaning of guru, it's a neuter gender word. That's a different word actually in Sanskrit. It's declined in a different way. Okay, and that word, neuter gender word, guru, means heavy. So the word used as an adjective for a heavy object is guru. Something that is very deep, very heavy, very solid, difficult to lift is guru, right? So here the word guru is used in that sense. A very heavy misery, a very severe misery. Na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate. Even when a very severe misery, if it comes to that person, that yogi, he will not be disturbed. He will be undisturbed even by a very severe misery which may come to that person. So we can think what kind of severe miseries people can experience in this world. Normally, when do we feel extremely miserable? For example, we may feel normal misery. Normal types of misery are when we do badly in the exam, let us say, or when somebody speaks harshly to us, or let us say we don't get something. We went to a party and we were expecting to meet somebody, that person is not there, or we were expecting to get some kind of food in that party, but that didn't come. So these are normal miseries. Heavier miseries are like, let us say somebody in our family dies, some parents or our children, or something happens to someone we like very much. These are more heavier miseries, right? And finally, we can think even heavier misery, maybe somebody catches us and tortures us in some manner, physically, or removes some part of our body. Okay, somebody cuts off some hand or leg or something. Those are even heavier miseries, torturing, right? Now it says that even with such heavy miseries, whatever form of misery, heaviest misery form possible for a conscious being, even then, this yogi, because he is experiencing so much happiness, He's fully conscious that he is not the body and that he is the self, and he has realized himself. Okay. So this beats whatever we understand through normal science and everything. It is something beyond that, because normal science, all the knowledge we get of normal science is through the mind, right? And through the senses. The senses in the mind is what gives us this knowledge. But this is beyond the senses in the mind. This is experience. This is experiential knowledge. And this is phenomenological in nature. Only when you experience it, you know it. You can't know it just by reading the shloka here. You can talk about it, but you can actually know it only when you experience it. So only then this situation when one is not shaken even by a great misery can appear. That state, having obtained which, one considers no gain as superior, no other gain as superior, and being situated in which one is not shaken even by a great misery. Tam vidyat dukkha sanyogam, dukkha sanyoga viyogam, yoga samhitam, sa nischayena yoktavyaha, yogo anirvinda chetasa. Tam vidya. So now in the previously slokas, he was just saying that state, that state, that state. Now he's saying, know that state that I have been describing in the last three shlokas. Dukkha sanyoga viyogam, as a state in which there is absolutely no contact with any form of misery. It's completely devoid of misery. And know that to be yoga samhitam. Know that to be the one that people are calling as yoga. Okay. So in the Gita, the word yoga is broadly used in two ways. One is as a state, destination state that one should attain. And the other is as a process which takes one to that state. So yoga, the word yoga is used in both these senses. And here it is used in the former sense, as the state in which one resides, state of perfection. Know that to be the state called as yoga. Sa nischayena yoktavyaha yoga. That yoga is the one that one should definitely engage in. Anirvinda chetasa means with a mind which is free from hopelessness or dejection. Anirvinda. Nirvinda means feeling hopeless, helpless, or depressed, dejected. In the course of trying to do something, trying to achieve success, you see, a lot of people, each one of us is trying to achieve success in something or the other. You are trying to do your PhD, or you're trying to do your career properly. Somebody else is maybe trying to do their business and improve their profitability. Someone else is trying to, let's say, write a book. So each of these requires a lot of hard work and systematic work, disciplined work. And sometimes the goal looks too difficult to achieve or too ambiguous, unclear. So when that happens and one finds that, or one feels that even after doing so much effort, I have not moved forward at all, nothing is happening, then one starts feeling helpless or hopeless. One feels I'm going in circles. Okay. And this happens to the path of yoga. In the path of Ashtanga yoga, this feeling of hopelessness, helplessness is a common feature. Because even after trying so much for years together, staying away, staying secluded, controlling one's breath, controlling one's diet, eating very simple food, living on, sometimes people live on leaves and fruits. So even after doing all that, I'm not able to control the mind. The mind is going here and there, right? So it looks like I'm still in the starting position only. I've done all this, I left my family, left everything, but what is the use of all this? I think I'm going to give up. So this feeling, Sri Bhagavan says, should be rejected. Never give up. Anirvinda Chetasa means a person who never feels hopeless. Don't feel hopeless. If hopelessness comes, reject it and say, no, I will continue. Until I get it, I will continue. Know that state in which contact with misery is absent to be what is called as yoga. One should practice such yoga with determination and the mind free from hopelessness and depression. Sankalpa prabhavan kamans tyaktva sarvan asheshatah manasa eva indriya gramam viniyamya samantatah. So again, Sri Bhagavan speaks two slokas to summarize all that he has spoken so far. Says, the beginning, sankalpa, how should we start this process? This process should start with sankalpa prabhavan kamans tyaktva. One should give up one's desires, or one should give up one's sense of enjoyment, pursuit of enjoyment. What kind of pursuit of enjoyment? Sankalpa prabhavan. when one pursues them with the intention to enjoy. Okay, so the differentiation is like this. He does not say that one should stop eating altogether, or one should stop feeling happiness which comes through the senses. See, there's a very fine difference here. When you say one should reject the enjoyment which comes from the senses, now the question that comes is, you see, sir, I was eating food today. In my house they made nice, roti with dal, and very good sabji was there, and there was also good rice, pulao was made. And as I'm eating it, I'm feeling so good. I like the taste. So now if I'm practicing yoga, then I should not like the taste. I should not get any more happiness from the food. No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying that one should not make that an objective. One should not pursue that as an objective. Now, in the course of living, one has to eat food. And in the course of eating food, naturally, some happiness will come. The senses are active. The senses don't become inactive just because one starts the process of yoga. The senses continue to be active even when one is in the stage of samadhi. The senses don't become inactive. Even in the stage of samadhi, if somebody is given a very tasty gulab jamun, they will feel the joy of eating that gulab jamun. Just because they are experiencing the self doesn't mean everything else appears bland to them. They may only say that the joy of the self is far more tasty than the taste of the gulab jamun, but the taste of the gulab jamun still is cognizable by them. They can still feel that taste as it is. Maybe they can feel it even better than somebody who does not have that consciousness. So here he's saying one should give up the pursuit, the intentional pursuit of sense enjoyment, not reject enjoyment which comes by itself. So when one engages in their normal activities, one may see a beautiful sight. So you're traveling and suddenly you see the mountains. The Dalma hills are so beautiful. If you're going on a road which passes through the Dalma mountains and it's the monsoon time, like now the monsoon is about to begin, the Dalma mountains look heavenly. They look so beautiful. So the yogi should not close his eyes and say, no, I don't want enjoyment. No, enjoy that. It's nice. It's God's creation. Let that happiness come by itself. If it's coming by itself, nothing wrong with it. What Bhagavan is saying is don't run behind it. Okay, sankalpa prabhavan kama. That's the meaning of saying sankalpa prabhavan. Don't take don't make an intention and then go behind it. Tyaktva sarvan asheshataha, all of them. Manasa eva indriya gramam viniyamya samantataha. One should control one's set of senses with the mind, and samantataha means comprehensively. Comprehensively control or regulate one's senses with the mind. This is the beginning of yoga. And by doing that, having discarded without remainder desires driven by the intention to enjoy, and having thoroughly disciplined one's senses with the mind, what should one do? Shanaihi uparamet. Shanaihi uparamet. Buddhya dhriti girhitaya. Atma samstam manah kritva na kinchidapi chintayet. So shanaihi means slowly. In Sanskrit, shanaihi is avyaya padam. It means slowly. Like for example, we say Shanaishcharaha, right? You know what the word Shanaishcharaha means? It refers to the planet which we call as Shani or Saturn, right? So that planet is called Shanaishcharaha or Shanishwara. Shanaishcharaha because it moves very slowly. In the orbit, orbit takes 2.5 years to complete, right? 2.5 Earth years to complete. So it is very slow moving compared to the Earth. Not 2.5, I beg your pardon. It is 30 years, I think. 30 years to complete. One round of Saturn takes 30 years to complete. It's very slow compared to the Earth, right? When it goes around the sun. So, Shanaihi uparamet. One should gradually, uparamet, buddhya dhriti grihitaya, atma samstam manah kritva. One's mind, one should very gradually, with the help of an intelligence which is steady, regulate the mind, and situated in the Atma samstam kritva. Situate. Atma is the samstha in which the mind is kept. Atma samstam kritva, in the self. Na kinchidapi chintayet. One should then reach a stage when one thinks of nothing other than the self. One's consciousness is so much absorbed in oneself that one completely becomes, uninterested in anything else. One should gradually restrain the mind's activities with an intelligence marked by steadiness, And after situating it in the self, not think of anything else. Yato yato nischalati manaha chanchalamasthiram tatastato niyamyaitat atmanyeva vasham nayet. So the mind is something that is always wandering. So he says, Manaha is Chanchalam. Chanchala means, Chanchala is the name of Lakshmi, right? Lakshmi, because why is Lakshmi called Mother Lakshmi? Lakshmi Ma, why is she called Chanchala? Because Lakshmi is also understood to represent wealth, right? Material wealth, money. So material wealth is Chanchala. It doesn't stay in one place. So nobody can say that all the time I have the same amount of wealth. It sometimes increases, sometimes decreases. It's always changing hands. Money is always moving around in this world. And today in economics also, we believe that if the economy has to be good in a country, then the movement of money has to be facilitated. The more the money moves, the more the economy grows. There's more opportunity, more jobs, etc. Okay, that is one perspective in economics. So Chanchala, here the mind is referred to as Chanchalam, Asthiram, unsteady. It's Chanchalam and Asthiram. And the mind will go here and there. But what should one do? Tatastato niyamya etat atmanyeva vasham nayet. The yogi should bring it back from wherever it has gone and situate it in the self. That is the job of the yogi. So the yogi should never become depressed, hopeless, helpless. It will keep wandering. Even at the stage of samadhi, sometimes one may find one has slipped down backwards. One has come down to the stage of where he was when he was doing pranayama, pratyahara, dharana. So he finds that, oh my God, I thought I had reached samadhi, but I have suddenly slipped down. Should not get discouraged. Again start. Again climb up the ladder. Again go back to samadhi. So by doing this again and again, one then reaches the stage from which one may never slip again. So the wandering and restless mind moves here and there, but regardless of where it goes, one must discipline it and bring it under the control of the self. And this is exactly what we should do. We are not doing Ashtanga Yoga now, but we may be doing some simple form of meditation in our life every day in the morning or evening. We may do some meditation to calm the mind. We may have learned it from somewhere, some samstha, but just by hearing someone's lecture on YouTube, we may learn how meditation is done. And when we do meditation, we also find the same thing happening. The mind goes here and there. There should be no frustration. Again and again, try to bring it back to what we are supposed to focus on. That is the learning from here. So there is a very interesting shloka in our Samskriti. I don't know the source of the shloka, but it says, Utseka udadehe, Utseka udader yadvat, Kushagrena eka binduna, Manaso nigraha tadvat, Bhavet aparikedatha. So, Utsekaha, udadehe utsekaha. Utsechanam means to dry up, like shoshanam, drying up. Utseka udadehe. Udadihi is the ocean. So, drying up the ocean. Yadvat. So, imagine somebody takes up a project of drying up the ocean. I want to dry up the ocean. Okay. So, drying up the water in your bathroom is something we normally do, right? If the bathroom is wet, then we go and wipe it and make it clean and dry. Imagine somebody thinks, okay, I'll dry up the whole ocean and I want to then walk on the bottom of the ocean. Now, how easy will that be, right? And that too, that person is not going to do it with some big machines or some vacuum or something, the big technology or something. How is a person going to do that? Kushagrena eka binduna. He's going to take a blade of kusha grass, one blade of kusha grass, and with that blade, he will take one drop at a time. He'll dip the blade of grass into the ocean, one drop will come, and then he'll put it on the side, and then dip it again, put it on the side. So if he's doing it like that, then how easy or difficult is it? So the shloka says, Manasaha nigraha tadvat bhavet aparikedatah. One should actually endeavor to control the mind with this mentality that I will control it drop by drop. Controlling the mind is as challenging as drying up the entire ocean, but I will take it one small step at a time, and I will eventually succeed. Aparikedatah means it's similar to anirvinda chetasa, without feeling hopeless. Never feel discouraged, never feel there's no point in doing this. but keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, get back to it, get back to it. And eventually, sometime it will succeed. And there is a very interesting story that is often narrated by several commentators, including Vishwanath Chakravarti and Baladev. Both have narrated this story in the commentary of in this discussion, as the discussion is going on. They talk about this. There's a bird called the Tittiba. In Sanskrit, it's called the Tittiba. Tittiba Bakshi. Tittiba is in English called as the lapwing. Okay, lapwing is a particular type of bird which stays close to water bodies, the sea or a river or the lake. Sometimes, migratory birds. So sometimes if you go and see, you'll see this particular bird called lapwing. You can later on Google on this. In Google Images, you will find a lot of photos of the lapwing. So the story is about one particular lapwing which had laid eggs on the shore of a particular ocean. So one day, the tide of the ocean went high and the waves came in and they took away the eggs. The lapwing became very, very pained by this, and the lapwing went to the ocean and said, "Please return my eggs. Accidentally, it seems you have taken it away." The ocean simply ignored the lapwing's request and said, "No, I don't care. I have many bigger things to do. Your eggs, you think that they are gone." So the lapwing pleaded with the ocean again and again. But the ocean says, "No, I'm not going to return it. You do whatever you like." Then the lapwing says, "Okay, I'll teach you a lesson. I will dry you up." So what the lapwing does, it goes and takes a few drops of water with its beak and then puts those drops of water on the land. And again picks up a few drops of water and goes and drops them on the land. And again goes and does the same thing. So lapwing does this again and again. And the ocean looks at the lapwing and says, "What a fool you are. What do you think you're doing? Do you think that you can dry me up?" So the ocean keeps laughing at the bird, and the bird says, "I don't care. As long as I get my eggs back, I will do this." So seeing that, other birds also who are watching all this, they come and they think that this bird has actually, because of the pain of losing her eggs, she has lost her mind also. So they go and tell her that, "Look, we know how pained it is to lose your eggs and your offsprings. They have gone. But there's no way that you can dry up the ocean. Forget about it. Please go to some other place and lay eggs again. That's the solution." So the lapwing says, "No, I'm going to dry up the ocean unless the ocean returns my eggs." So these birds also don't know what to do. So they keep quiet and they are watching. They're also pained. After some time, one fine day, the great sage Narada, he happens to be passing by. Narada is always wandering, right? He goes different places, he meets people, and he sees what problem they are facing. He tries to help them. That's his job, right? He's wandering, always wandering here and there and solving problems. So he sees this bird is doing this again and again. So he goes to her and says, "What happened? Why are you doing this?" The bird explains to him. And Narada is very impressed. He said, "Wow, here is someone who is unwilling to give up, however difficult it is." So what Narada does, when he next goes to Vaikuntha to see his Bhagavan, he goes to Garuda and he tells Garuda, "See, there is one member of your own community, and that person has been betrayed by the ocean. So it looks like you can help her." So hearing that, Garuda comes down to earth and Garuda sees the bird doing this. Immediately he goes and he stands on top of the ocean. He tells the ocean, "I'm going to dry you up now." And he starts fanning his wings. And the moment he starts fanning his wings, the ocean realizes that the game is up. The ocean is no match for Garuda's power. The ocean immediately apologizes to the bird and to Garuda and returns the eggs back. So the moral of the story is that one should never give up. Although one may not be able to achieve that goal through one's own efforts, if one is sincere, then Sri Bhagavan himself will send that help to that person. As in the case of this story. The story is told by several commentators in the Bhagavad-Gita to highlight how one should be encouraged to take up on the path of spiritual progress a challenging goal without fear. Because Sri Bhagavan comes and helps that person. If the person is sincere, honest, the mentality has the mentality of nishkapatta, non-cheating, then Sri Bhagavan himself will come and help that person. So there are very, very practical lessons for us when we read the Bhagavad Gita. One should remind, each of us should remind ourselves that by learning the Gita, we are actually learning about our own inner spiritual identity. Each of us is a spiritual being, a jivatma living in this body, and we should remind ourselves every day of that particular thing. Our real happiness is inside. Sri Bhagavan is the center of our existence. He lives inside us. And he is both the goal and the means to achieve that goal. Making spiritual progress is like drying up the ocean drop by drop, but one should never give up. I sent this email to the PhD students a few days back. Consistency is divine, right? And this actually comes from the Bhagavad Gita. Consistency is superior to quantity. It is not about doing a lot of work in the weekend and doing nothing on the other days. It's about doing a little bit every day. So spiritual progress depends on doing that little on that day, on every single day. Simplicity is the core of spiritual life. Simplicity favors success and simplicity favors happiness. One who is complex in their thinking can never be successful. Accepting failure, but not accepting weakness. So failure is a reality of life. Very often, anyone, the most qualified person, will encounter failure. And an intelligent person accepts failure as failure, recognizes that, yes, I made a mistake, recognizes that, yes, I don't have that ability at this moment to do what this work requires. Accepting that, not having an ego which falsely deludes oneself to think that one is very great, one is very intelligent, one is very smart. No, accepting that one has made a mistake, at least to oneself, if not to others. But not accepting weakness. When I say not accepting weakness, what I mean is not thinking that I cannot do it if I try to do it. If I sincerely try, then I will be able to do it. That is the strength that the Bhagavad Gita gives us. Accept failure, but don't accept weakness, because the former is external. Failure is something that comes in contact with our external world. But the latter, weakness, is an internal thing, like strength. Strength is also an internal thing. So we have to constantly remind ourselves of our own inner strength and accept that it will take some time to discover that strength. So this is the essence of today's discussion. And with this, I will stop for today. If you have any questions, comments, we can discuss. Om Shanno Mitra Sham Varunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Brahaspati Shanno Vishnu Brahmaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Utam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tatvaktaramavatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.